I'm Madison Mills. Welcome back to Bloomberg Quicktake. This week marks 100 days since the U.S. withdrew its military presence from Afghanistan, following nearly 20 years of conflict in the nation. At the time, a lot of predictions were made following the fall of Kabul. But more than 3 months on, how is the nation doing and where are we at with those predictions? Here with a status update from Washington is Dr. Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Dr. Cohen, welcome back to Quicktake and thanks for being here. I want to jump right in, starting with the big question on terrorism. About 3 months ago, a lot of the guests we had on this show talked about the pending return of al-Qaeda. Where do we stand with that today? And what evidence have you seen, if any, of a big return to that level of terror?
First of all, I just came back from the region. I was in Kazakhstan. This is not a border state, but it's still in the heart of Eurasia, as is Afghanistan. And those folks in Kazakhstan keep a close and wary eye on Afghanistan. I can tell you that the big challenge now is the clash between Taliban and ISIS, Daesh, and the threat ISIS is presenting to the Taliban. While the Taliban is already trying to have contacts with the US, with Qatar, with Pakistan, ISIS is in a full jihad mode, is fighting its Taliban hosts as well as the rest of the world. So these two are duking it out for the control of Afghanistan, and many among the local radicals are joining ISIS. The second issue is that we have a lot of refugees leaving Afghanistan, vast majority of them for good reasons. They don't see the future. A lot of people are starving. I was trying desperately to help some people to leave. So far, unsuccessful. It's very hard. But among these tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of refugees may be radicals who are sent to the West to establish cells, to conduct attacks, or to conduct attacks in the future. So it's absolutely crucial that the services in Europe and in the United States screen people who are knocking on our doors and are saying that they're refugees from the pretty horrible regime, of course, that Taliban had established in Afghanistan and in Kabul.
Tell me about what grade you would give the Biden administration in terms of predicting how the U.S. withdrawal from the region would impact relations between ISIS and the Taliban, for example.
The overall execution of that withdrawal is an F. This is a collapse of U.S. power structure in an area that was spent 20 years and over $1 trillion trying to engage in what is called nation building, misleading ourselves, telling ourselves stories about what we can accomplish or not accomplish in Afghanistan. What we needed to do there, and we failed to do, was go in, destroy al-Qaeda, destroy the terrorist infrastructure, and then leave whoever was capable of ruling that place and leave the minimal footprint. If we didn't do that, if we stayed there for so long, we needed to continue doing what we're doing in Iraq. It's called Status of Forces Agreement. We can leave 2,500, 3,000 select troops to coordinate airstrikes, to train, to equip, to collect intelligence. Now, we're blind and deaf and mute. We do not have eyes on the ground. A lot of conversations that I had when I traveled in Central Asia in July and now is how crippled we are by leaving Afghanistan in its totality and not keeping an eyes and ears on the ground.
Well, I wonder to what extent, though, that might have been inevitable. I could imagine a Biden administration official saying that clashes between leaders in the region and ISIS were going to happen regardless of whether or not the U.S. kept troops on the ground.
Correct. And I would point out that the agreement for U.S. pullout was undertaken under the Trump administration, but Biden continued. Biden was an opponent of this broad engagement. He was a supporter of anti-terrorism approach, not anti-insurgency approach. This is Washington speak for broad engagement versus narrow engagement. But once you were discussing the modalities of that disengagement or withdrawal, you needed to understand not just the deadline that Biden selected, the 31st of August, you needed to understand what happened next. Mm-hmm. And we failed in securing our allies. We failed people who trusted us with their lives. We failed women who did achieve quite a lot in the modern post-Taliban Afghanistan for 20 years, and now some of them being hunted and executed and raped and killed. It is horrible what is happening to the more advanced, more accomplished Afghan women. There were police officers, diplomats, and professors whose lives are destroyed today or, killed in a brutal way in Afghanistan today. And I hate to say it, we have something to do with that.
Spokesmen from the Taliban were very quick after the fall of Kabul to talk about how the rights of women and girls would be different this time around, right? That education would be preserved, that freedom would be preserved as well for women and girls. What have you seen in terms of those promises? Did those completely fall flat? Was any of it true?
From what I understand, the mixed classes, mixed education is finished. I do believe that in the majority of careers or professions, women were all kicked out. They were told not to come to work. I think with the exception of hospitals, they need those nurses, possibly doctors, to take care of their sick and wounded. And in universities, I understand that women are limited to women-only classes taught by women, or maybe in Saudi Arabia, they had professors remotely teaching via Skype or via Zoom, but not being present in the room. Of course, it limits the ability of those women to interact with their professors and teachers. And it also, they also don't allow women to travel without a male companion. That also happened in Saudi Arabia until recently, and in Iran. So that is a part of Sharia rules for women traveling. In general, people who are trying to leave Afghanistan are encountering two barriers: one internal by the Taliban, and also external when countries do not provide them visas. So the situation is critical. We need to do more to help people who want to leave, especially our allies, our assets, our collaborators. We need to get them out.
The Biden administration had also promised that all individuals who had assisted U.S. troops on the ground would get out if they wanted to get out, and then later suggested that some individuals did choose to stay behind. Where are we at with that?
Well, unfortunately, there are many more people who want to get out than people who chose to stay. Some of the people who are trying to get out hold U.S. Permanent residence, green cards. They cannot get out. Some of them do not, but they were our translators, our guides, our collaborators. So we need to do much more. It's a bureaucratic breakdown, a mess between the State Department, the Defense Department. There are a lot of volunteer groups stepping in because the U.S. government is not doing a good job saving the lives of people who risk their lives. I have friends who know people who got executed. It is heartbreaking what happened there.
Dr. Cohen, and my final question to you, there's a lot that we've talked about here and a lot that we didn't even get to, but we are limited in time. It's 100 days into the fall of Kabul. What do you see happening in the next 3 months? What does the situation on the ground look like 3 months from now when it's been 6 months total since the Taliban took over?
You know, there's a lot of chatter about how Taliban needs to become Taliban version 2.0. the nice and fluffy Taliban. It's not going to happen. They're not going to abandon their core beliefs, their core values, which are the extremist version of Sharia law, and start cooperating with us. There are already hangings and amputations for relatively minor infractions and crimes. They are brutal, and they are not, very important to understand, they're not a united body. There are elements that are terrorists, like the Haqqani network, that are in key positions in the Taliban government. Minister of Interior, key ministers are parts of the Haqqani network, which is recognized as one of the worst terrorist organizations. So we need to work with others in the region. And for this, there's no choice but to talk to Russia, China, Pakistan, India, and others. And of course, our friends in Central Asia, who have better view, better contact with Kabul and with the parts of the Taliban regime. And we need to increase our presence there and around Afghanistan in terms of eyes and ears and intelligence assets to understand what the terrorist threats are going to be.
Really appreciate you giving that context for us 100 days in here. Dr. Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow with the Atlantic Council, thanks for joining us again here on Quick Take. That's going to do it for us right now, but stick with us for more Quick Take ahead right here.